The Butcher's Gift. The small town of Coldwater had always been quiet, nestled in a valley surrounded by thick forests. But that changed when bodies started appearing, dismembered and posed like grotesque sculptures in the town square. The killer became known as the Butcher, a name that struck fear into even the bravest souls. Anna, a paramedic, had seen the aftermath of the Butcher's work up close. The first victim had been her childhood friend, Jake. His body was found hanging from a lamppost, arms and legs removed, his torso sewn into the shape of a macabre smile. The second victim was a teenage girl whose head was mounted on a mannequin in a twisted mockery of a fashion display. The Butcher didn't just kill, he created. When Anna received a call one stormy night to respond to a 911 distress signal deep in the woods, she knew she should refuse. But the dispatcher insisted. The signal came from the old slaughterhouse, they said. Her heart sank. The slaughterhouse had been abandoned for years, its rusted equipment a relic of a darker time when animals were bled and butchered by hand. Anna and her partner, Lucas, drove through the storm to the location. The building loomed ahead, its metal walls streaked with rust that looked disturbingly like dried blood. They entered cautiously, flashlights cutting through the suffocating darkness. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of copper and decay. Hooks dangled from the ceiling, some swaying gently as if something had just brushed against them. The floor was slick with something viscous that stuck to their boots. Anna spotted a trail of fresh blood leading deeper into the building. She wanted to turn back, but Lucas pressed on. The trail ended at a massive steel door, its surface covered in deep scratches and smeared handprints. As Lucas pushed it open, a dim light flickered inside. The room was enormous, the centerpiece a grotesque display, a table surrounded by body parts, arms, legs, torsos, arranged in a circle like a twisted clock. At the center sat a figure wearing a mask made of human skin stitched together, the crude smile carved into it dripping with fresh blood. Before they could react, the door slammed shut behind them. The figure stood, dragging a massive cleaver behind him. His voice was a low, guttural rasp. "Welcome to my gallery. You're the final piece." Lucas lunged forward, but the Butcher was fast. The cleaver arced through the air, slicing through Lucas's arm with a sickening crunch. He screamed, clutching the stump as blood spurted in violent pulses. The Butcher moved with horrifying precision, swinging again and severing Lucas's leg, sending him crashing to the floor. Anna froze, paralyzed by fear, as the Butcher dragged Lucas's writhing body toward the table. "Help me," Lucas screamed, his voice raw with terror. But Anna couldn't move. She watched in horror as the Butcher pinned Lucas to the table, using long iron nails to fix his limbs in place. Lucas's screams echoed through the slaughterhouse as the cleaver came down again and again, reducing him to a grotesque pile of flesh. Anna's paralysis broke and she bolted for the door, but the floor was slick and she slipped, landing hard. A shadow loomed over her, and when she looked up, the Butcher was there. His mask was so close now, and she could see the jagged stitching and the dried blood caked into it. "You're going to be beautiful," he whispered, dragging her toward the table. She fought, clawing at the floor, but his strength was inhuman. He strapped her down beside Lucas's remains, his cleaver glinting in the dim light. "Don't worry," he said, his tone almost tender. "I always make sure they stay alive long enough to see themselves completed." As the cleaver descended, Anna's screams filled the slaughterhouse, blending with the storm outside. The next morning, the townspeople found the latest creation. Anna and Lucas fused together in a nightmarish sculpture of flesh, their faces twisted in eternal agony. And in the shadows of the forest, the Butcher smiled, sharpening his tools for the next masterpiece.